I'm sure most of us remember that incident, don't we? During World War II, it became high art. Members of the 23rd Headquarters Special Troop used special weapons like dummy planes, tanks, aircraft, guns, and amplified recordings that created war sounds to fool the German high command. Yeah. To enable a combat unit to change positions or even attack when the Germans thought it hadn't moved at all, the 1,800 men of the 23rd impersonated entire divisions. They would move in at night, change insignias, and inflate their rubber decoys. Meanwhile, the troops they were replacing sneaked away. Such deception was a major factor in the success of the Allied forces during D-Day invasion, as the 15th Army, or German 15th Army, waited elsewhere for an assault that never came or never happened. So, warfare is, can be deceptive. And here today, as I woke up this morning, I couldn't help but think about this message and about Samson again. He's being deceived today, as we will see through our lesson. And he is in a spiritual warfare that he's really not even aware of. And I couldn't help but think, as Christians in our daily lives today, sometimes we have a tendency to forget that we are in a spiritual battle. And we are fighting a spiritual war that sometimes we don't see and we're not aware of, that we're even involved in that. It's easy to forget. It's easy to forget. Well, the lesson before us today is about deception, greed, and lies. As we near the end of the study of our life of Samson, we were reminded from his life that if you play with fire, sooner or later you're going to get burned. Right? Yeah. Good lesson for us to remember. Time and time again, we have seen Samson not only going down to a geographical place where he shouldn't have been in the first place, but he's going down spiritually as well. He's going down. First, Samson went down to the town of Timnah, where he saw a Philistine woman that he was attracted to, and he wanted to marry her. And after Samson presented the bridegrooms with a riddle that they could not answer, the bridegrooms approached Samson's wife in order to discover the answer to the riddle that he proposed to them. Under the threat of burning her and her father to death, she coaxes Samson into giving her the answer to the riddle, which in turn she gives to the Philistines to ask. After Samson's wife had given the Philistines the answer to the riddle, Samson went off to his father's household, where he stayed because he was angry. He was mad about the situation. He'd lost a bet. And so he went there to cool off. Then Samson returns after a while during the wheat harvest and to claim his bride. And only to find out that his father-in-law gave her to his best man of the wedding. You talk about having a bad day. You need some of those four-leaf clovers, right? He needed some. But then Samson, in retaliation, burns the crops of the Philistines. Then the Philistines burn Samson's wife and father-in-law to death for destroying the crops. And then Samson takes out his revenge on the Philistines by killing many of them. And after that, Samson went and stayed and hid in a cave at Edom. We read in chapter 15 that 3,000 men of Judah went down to Samson where he was hiding in order to turn him over to the Philistines. The men of Judah was his own people, and they tied him up in order to hand him over to the Philistines. And again, what kind of friends those are, I could do without, right?
Let's put it this way. With friends like that, you don't need anything.
Yes, absolutely right. And as the Philistines approached Samson, they began shouting, and he broke the ropes that he was tied up with. He struck down and killed 1,000 of the Philistines with the fresh jawbone of a donkey. Okay. And after this victory, God gave Samson some water to quench his thirst. Samson had whined to God about, doing this great service for him, for killing all the Philistines. And God supplied him with this water to quench his thirst and to strengthen him again and to revive him. Then Samson decides to go down to Gaza, where he sees a prostitute and he spends the night with her. Again, we've seen this man, he is quite a character. Again, this is a place where Samson should not have been in the first place, and we see that he continues to go down spiritually speaking. In our lesson today, we not only see that Samson is going down spiritually, we see him beginning to sink to a new low or to a new level. Now we pick up the story today beginning in verse 4 of chapter 16. It says, sometime later he fell in love with a woman from the valley of Sorek whose name was Delilah. And I think most of us are familiar with this story, right? The rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, see if you can lure him into showing you the secret of his great strength and how we can overpower him so we may tie him up and subdue him. Each one of us will give you 1,100 shekels of silver. Now, I'm going to continue on this chapter here, but I'm going to break it down in segments here because it's quite lengthy. First of all, we see the love that was deceptive or descriptive of Samson. He says sometime later, this was after the incident with the battle at where he killed all the Philistines, and then he prayed to God and got refreshed. Sometime later after that, don't know how much time it elapsed, but sometime later he fell in love with a woman from the valley of Sorek whose name was Delilah. And again, this is kind of descriptive of Samson's life, isn't he? He loves women. He loves women. I mean, it's like walking out in the field and seeing a bunch of nice looking flowers. He wants all of them.
Of course.
You know? But this has been Samson's problem from the very beginning, though. This has been his problem. We are now introduced to the third woman that plays a major role in Samson's life. As we have seen in the past, Samson's greatest weakness was women. I mean, we all have our Achilles heel, right? We all have our weaknesses. His just happened to be women. Not picking on the women, don't get me wrong, okay? You know, this is just the story. They were, again, the women were the cause of his trouble. They were the major part of the reason why he was going down spiritually speaking. Now, first of all, it wasn't wrong for Samson to be in love with a woman. Love between a man and a woman is a God-given blessing. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. A love for a woman was not wrong, but in Samson's case, it seems that his love was often motivated by appearances. In the case of the woman from Timnah, it was more lust than love. So he really lusted for the women more than he really loved them, because he really never told them he loved them. Also, his troubles came from loving the wrong women. Okay? I mean, you know, it's funny. I watch that in this Investigate Discovery, and I see some of these people get involved with the wrong people. Boy, they can cause you a lot of trouble. And that's what happens with Samson. He gets caught up getting attracted to the wrong women. He gets hooked up with the wrong women. He causes him a whole lot of trouble. The first woman was a Philistine, and his marriage to her was strictly forbidden by God. He was not to marry outside of the covenant people, the Israelite people, but that doesn't seem to deter him. And the second woman was a prostitute, which really no good comment I can make about that is, I mean, that would cause you more trouble than it's worth, probably. And then the third woman is the only one of the three that we know the name of. We know a little about her, except that she was from the valley of Sorek. This was an area near the hometown of Samson and was inhabited by both Israelites and the Philistines. Whether, like I said, it doesn't say what nationality she is, but I suspect that she's a Philistine. And really, her race is not that important, but her actions and attitude are.
They were all enemies.
Yeah, they were the enemies. The heart of Samson's problem lay in the fact that he loved women that had been forbidden by God. And again, the heart of most problems in the Christian life is loving things that God has condemned as well. Over the course of time, Samson's life, this is the third woman that we have recorded of him being with. And from the text that mentions these women, it seems that all of these women were Philistine women. As I said, it appears that Samson was attracted to women who should have been off limits to him as a man of God. It appears that he had, again, a problem with lust, which as a man of God he should have fought against and stayed away from. I think of Joseph whenever he was tempted by Potiphar's wife. He didn't give in, did he? He hightailed and ran the other way. But that's not Samson's character, is it? Not at all. Not at all. He couldn't do that. In this text, we're told that Samson loved Delilah. This was not said about the woman he took to be his wife. Never said that. Nor is it said about the harlot from Gaza. Never says that. In the case of Delilah, it seems that she had touched his heart in a way that no other woman could have or did, and it appears that he really loved her. And as the text suggests in verse 17, he trusted her with his most valuable secrets. The love that Samson had for Delilah reminds us that of a love of the world or worldly things. Warren Wiersbe gives us a definition of the world. He says, it is Satan's system for opposing the work of Christ on earth. It is the very opposite of what is godly and holy and spiritual. That's what love of the world means, according to Warren Wiersbe. Now, the second thing that we see from the life of Samson is the law that was disobeyed by Samson. Everything that we see happening finds its roots in Samson's Nazirite vow. Now, for most of us that have been through this study, we know from our study that Samson was to be a Nazirite, set apart for God, and there were certain conditions that he was to live by.
No fruit of the vine, no unclean animals, and you can't touch anything that died.
All right? And he wasn't to cut his hair.
Yeah, that one could go, yeah, and that's the one that's fallen down.
Those were the conditions laid out for Samson's life. And that was a Nazirite vow. And he was supposed to keep that for his entire life, from birth to death. Now we read of Delilah's interrogation. We pick up the story again in verse 5. It says, the rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, see if you can lure him into showing you the secret of his great strength and how we can overpower him so we may tie him up and subdue him. Each one of us will give you 1,100 shekels of silver. Now, the word rulers of the Philistines were the chief rulers of the Philistines, of the towns around that area. There was 5 of them. And after all the havoc that Samson had caused the Philistines, these big guns, rulers, decided to get together and do something about this thorn in their side and get rid of Samson. So they approached Delilah to find out the secret to his strength. One commentary says these rulers knew already where Samson's weakness lay. They knew where his strength. They didn't know where his strength was, but they knew where his weakness was.
Yeah, women.
Women, right? Samson's reputation for being putty in the hands of a pretty woman was well known.